Open world games are consistently generous when it comes to the rewards given to players upon completion of certain aspects of the game. Rockstar Games has continually kept this idea in a grand majority of their games, often bestowing the player with anything from large sums of money, to luxury cars, to cheat codes, to even something called Monkey See, Monkey Die, which sounds like a darkly comedic reality show in GTA. Plot twist, it's from Manhunt. Good luck getting therapy, but I'll tell you right now, it's not gonna help. Now, Rockstar makes games that, for the most part at least, allow the player to interact with the world's pedestrians however they see fit. This can range from having civil conversations to getting into fistfights or taking shit from 0 to 100 and busting out an entire arsenal of weaponry because a pissed off bystander flipped you the bird. Of course, the morally gray choices will often come with repercussions, most notably in the form of law enforcement. Cause too much carnage and you'll see yourself either within the confines of a jail cell or waking up with a massive headache and an overpriced hospital bill after miraculously surviving the 5th cranial bullet wound in a week. Well, what if I told you that there was a reward that gave the player free will to inflict as much collateral damage as possible without any trouble from the authorities? Well, in order to see what I'm talking about, we gotta take a look at Red Dead Redemption. If Grand Theft Auto gave you the fantasy of being a wealthy criminal with a concerning number of expensive sports cars and machine guns, then Red Dead Redemption immerses you in the concept of being one of the deadliest gunslingers in the Wild West. If you're like me though, you probably spend your time laughing like a maniac after seeing John Marston take one too many shots and stumble around like an absolute doofus. Now, when you're not profusely drinking alcohol or riding your horse into the sunset, there's a chance that you'll at least want to be a presentable and stylish member of society. And when I say presentable and stylish member of society, I mean that you'll probably want a change of clothes. Luckily, Red Dead Redemption lets you do just that, with an assortment of outfits and disguises that can actually give you gameplay-related benefits depending on what you wear. This can range from outfits that allow you to blend in with gangs, to one that can let you cheat at poker, to one that even lets you buy weapons and ammunition at half the price. Acquisition of the aforementioned outfits can vary depending on the task, ranging from completing certain segments of the story to finding the pieces of the outfit in order to craft it. However, one of the best outfits in the game by a long shot is also one of the hardest to obtain. I'm talking about the Bureau outfit. What does this outfit do, you may ask? Well, remember the gratuitous violence I mentioned earlier and how it comes with consequences? The Bureau outfit almost completely mitigates this issue by granting the player complete immunity from the law for any and all crimes. That means that you can now cause as much destruction and terror as possible without any legal repercussions. Try this as much as you want in the game, but do this in real life and you'll end up in a maximum security prison if they don't immediately hit you with capital punishment. And let's not forget about the way you'll be looking at soap on a rope from then on. How do you unlock this outfit, I hear you ask with morbid excitement? Simple! You have to get 100% completion in the game. Look, good things don't come easy. Luckily, if you've beaten the story, you already have a head start in completion, as it takes up roughly 57% of the completion requirements. But what about the other 43%? Well, there's 45 bounty hunting missions, 40 single-player challenges that you need to complete, ranging from killing birds from a moving train to finding all of the treasure chests scattered around the map. There are 8 gang hideouts, 16 outfits, 5 job locations with 2 jobs each, 94 locations to discover on the map, 6 different mini-games that you have to win or else they aren't counted towards completion, 5 rare weapons, 13 safe houses, and 19 stranger missions, which are essentially this game's version of side quests. Holy shit. After completing all of these tasks, you're finally awarded the coveted Bureau uniform, and you can now wreak as much havoc as you want, with your only 2 worries being the more combative civilians who are willing to fight back, and running out of ammo when things get a little heated. Or if you don't want to go through all of that, you can actually just use cheat codes to unlock this outfit whenever you want. But where's the satisfaction in that? Now, how about 100% completion in Red Dead Redemption 2? It certainly can't be that much more work. I'll stick to the bar, thank you. So let me ask you, does anyone remember the MediEvil series? I'd wager a fair few of you watching this video are at least somewhat familiar with it, but for those of you who aren't, let me fill you in. MediEvil puts you in the shoes of Sir Daniel Fortescue, who, according to legend, had led the kingdom of Gallowmere to a noble victory against a wicked sorcerer named Zarok and his undead army. In reality, however, Dan was killed via the very first arrow that was fired in battle, and Zarok had managed to slip away. Fast forward 100 years and Zarok returns with a conniving plot to resurrect his undead army and claim victory victory over Gallomir. However, there's one little issue. He accidentally resurrects Sir Dan from the dead in the process. Dan uses this opportunity to redeem himself and defeat Zarok to become the savior of Gallomir, and prove himself as the brave and noble knight that he was depicted as in legend. MediEvil is a creative and hilarious adventure that I personally think is one of PlayStation's most underrated and overlooked franchises. And that should tell you something, because Tomba exists. It was a series that was born on and ended on the original PlayStation, and the only thing we've gotten since is a remake of the first game both on the PlayStation Portable and the PS4, and a spot on the roster of PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. But don't get your hopes up, because competitively, he's a complete joke. Did you really think that this fucking goofball stood even a modicum of a chance against Kratos? Despite this, the relatively obscure series lives on as an integral piece of PlayStation's history. Now, the 2019 MediEvil remake was an excellent way of revisiting the original game. Most of the gameplay-related changes were relatively minute, but the graphical overhaul and enhanced audio helped compensate for that. And I'd argue that it's now the premier method of playing this underrated gem. However, there was some additional content added to the game that, at a glance, seemed relatively unimpactful, but in reality added a pretty damn cool bonus to an already fantastic game. I'm talking about the Lost Souls. The Lost Souls were a new addition to the PS4 MediEvil remake exclusively, meaning that it's not content found in either the original game or the PSP remake. In each of the levels, you'll now find wandering souls that are in search of their original resting places. They're surprisingly calm and tranquil, which is a damn relief, because I've just spent the previous 6 hours hearing poor Sir Daniel get ridiculed and lambasted by other fallen warriors for his pathetic efforts. If it were me, though, I'd be poking fun at his newfound inability to play the trumpet via his lack of a jaw, but I bet his head game is insane. Each soul generally has a hint about where to place it, and it's up to you to decipher what location they want you to bring them to. It's a fun and enjoyable series of side quests that give you some decent incentive to return to the levels you've previously completed. Return all of the souls to their resting places and everything will initially seem normal. That is, until you decide to hop back into the game, because this time the title screen looks a little different. There's new game, load game, and a brand new old game option. Clearly, the MediEvil remake is going to become extremely influential by introducing a new classification of save data. Let's check it out. Alright, somebody pinch me. This is either a fever dream or my medication is wearing off. And I'll tell you right now, I'm starting to get dizzy. Yeah, after returning all 19 of the Lost Souls, you're granted the entire original PS1 port of MediEvil in all of its rough, jagged-edge, nostalgic glory. Why would you want to play the original version of MediEvil when you have the remake at your disposal? I don't know, maybe some people prefer having their games look like they have the texture and visual fidelity of shredded paper. But hey, to each their own. But the fact that you're effectively getting both the original and the remade version of the same game all in one package is a really damn neat reward for going the extra mile. Sadly, we haven't heard any MediEvil related news since the remake's release, but if this is the series' final swan song, then it certainly couldn't have concluded in a better fashion. When it comes to granting the player rewarding completion bonuses, the Resident Evil series is the absolute king of its craft. From playing as a sentient piece of tofu in Resident Evil 2, to some of the later games granting the player access to the now iconic Mercenaries mode, to plenty of other goodies, the series is just as well known for scaring the piss out of players as it is rewarding them. It's like an on-again, off-again relationship, minus the eventual restraining orders or the divorce papers. The frustration and sexual tension still remains, though. Resident Evil 4 in particular offers so many goodies that it's hard to keep count. If you beat the game once, you unlock a slew of cosmetic items that you can use to change Leon from a battle-hardened and slick special agent to a devilishly handsome edgelord who channels his inner Black Swan, minus the mental deterioration and hallucinations about Mila Kunis. To be fair though, I'd do the same thing even without the mental issues. But what good is a glorified cosplaying session if you don't have the proper weaponry at your disposal? Well, don't worry, because Resident Evil 4 certainly delivers. You've got the Infinite Rocket Launcher, which, as the name implies, provides you with a rocket launcher with a bottomless supply of ammunition, and is so powerful that it one-shots almost every enemy in the game, including bosses. I'll say it right now, if you've never done a full game run-through with one of these, then there's a high likelihood that you've been described as the antithesis of fun, and your favorite store is probably Staples. Then you have the hand cannon, a revolver with infinite ammunition that absolutely eviscerates enemies in a single shot, giving Dirty Harry a run for his money. And probably a chubby. But quite possibly the coolest post-game unlockable is the Chicago Typewriter, or as it's known in the remake, the Chicago Sweeper, a submachine submachine gun that, once fully upgraded, can be granted the power of a bottomless clip, with no need to reload or manage ammunition. Just fire away and let the enemies feel the wrath of a constant barrage of bullets and roughly 660,000 pesetas. Or pesetas? Look, the upgrades don't come cheap, and if I'm paying top dollar, you're damn right I'm gonna use this thing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why is just a submachine gun with infinite ammo one of the coolest completion rewards? Firstly, I want you to repeat that in your head until you recognize the absurdity of that question. It's a Tommy gun with infinite ammo, you fucking Neanderthal. Secondly, there's another unlockable that, when coupled with the Chicago Sweeper, makes it an even more enjoyable bonus: the pinstripe suit. Beat the game and then purchase the outfit in the bonus store, and you now have Leon looking like he's been ripped straight out of a 1930s gangster movie. You're now roundhouse kicking enemies and dropping one-liners, all while looking like you're about to make the meanest chocolate cannoli this side of Spain. Couple this with the Chicago Sweeper, and you can now live out an overly violent power fantasy in which you are quite literally busting the kneecaps of your opponents and probably recreating a scene from Scarface, minus Al Pacino and the copious amounts of cocaine. And if you ever decide to reload the Chicago Sweeper when you're wearing this thing, you'll see the reason why Leon puts the smooth in Smooth Criminal. God, that's so fucking cool. And yes, if you're wondering, it's only possible while wearing this outfit. It's extremely impractical in the heat of battle, but whenever you do pull it off, it quickly becomes one of the most brazen and stylish taunts to ever pull off towards your opponent. You can even do a slick gun twirl if you reload with the hand cannon, but I can't help but think that Leon should have been touting a Western outfit to really keep the themes consistent. I revoke my previous statement. Super Mario Odyssey is an absolutely masterful entry in the long-running Mario franchise, and if you ask me, might just be Mario's magnum opus. In a time where 3D platformers were a thing of yesteryear, Super Mario Odyssey brought them back in full force, and gave players a nostalgic yet refreshing adventure with creative level design, an absolutely bangin' soundtrack, and the niche yet fulfilling fantasy of controlling a frog's motor functions. And don't even get me started on the outfits. With its more open-ended and sandbox-esque level design, many players drew comparisons to this game and Super Mario 64, a game that many consider to have conceived the 3D platformer genre and is often hailed as one of Mario's best adventures. Of course, it seemed like the developers were one step ahead of the curve, so to speak, as there are not only numerous references and callbacks to the aforementioned game, but also an absolutely magnificent completion bonus that is the pure epitome of fan service. No, not that kind. After completing the main story, you could go on and collect a bounteous haul of power moons, or throw Cappy at Luigi for a concerning amount of time, but if you notice, there's another location that needs exploring. Given the game's namesake, it's probably a good idea to continue your adventure. Head that way and you'll stumble upon the Mushroom Kingdom, with Peach's castle standing firmly in view. If this site looks a little familiar, well, I mean, you should have already known that you were playing a Mario game, but if you somehow didn't, you can rest easy, because this entire bonus level is a direct homage to Super Mario 64. In that game, Peach's castle serves as a sort of hub world or a gateway that leads you to the other levels of the game. But now, this same area is a fully fledged level, filled to the brim with 116 power moons, which, holy shit, that's only 4 less than every single power star in Mario 64, and a plethora of clever references that, I'll admit, made me feel like I was playing Super Mario 64 for the first time. And yes, you can even hop into some of the paintings just like in the original game, but they instead function as this game's equivalent of a boss replay mode. And of course, if you manage to make it to the rooftop, you'll find Yoshi, just like in the original game. But instead of relaying a message from the development team and not doing much else, he's a selective mute that may or may not enjoy the prospect of being mind-controlled via a cap. But I'll tell you what he does enjoy. I'll give you a hint. That tongue isn't just made for eating Goombas. But something just doesn't quite seem right. I mean, the world looks visually striking, and the Mario 64 references are quite nice, but that classic Nintendo 64 charm is lacking. Something just doesn't look quite blocky enough. Well, if you collect enough purple coins in the level, you can also unlock 2 outfit pieces that, when put together, allow Mario to don his classic Super Mario 64 look in all of its polygonal glory. It's admittedly a little bit jarring to see him stroll around the modernized reimagining of the area while looking like a guy straight out of 1996, but in terms of charm and nostalgia, he's ahead of the game. Venturing to this area also kickstarts a series of quests in which you have to find out where Princess Peach is, and in a humorous twist, she's not being held hostage by a fire-breathing lizard with one too many kids, for once, but instead casually exploring each of the worlds that you previously visited. And unlike the original Super Mario 64 and the DS remake, if you play through enough of the game, you're granted the ability to play as Waluigi, marking this as his playable mainline entry debut. Close enough. God damn it. What happens when you take a concept like Grand Theft Auto but replace the huge cities, sports cars, and lethal weaponry with a corrupt boarding school filled with non-stop fighting, cliques, and students that run around with stink bombs and bottle rocket launchers? Well, you get a boarding school that'll transition really well into a prison whenever the school board shuts it down, but you also get 2006's Bully. In Bully, you play as 15-year-old Jimmy Hopkins, a teenager with a troubled past who is sent to Bulworth Academy, a notoriously strict and troublesome boarding school with depraved teachers, defined cliques who absolutely despise one another, and a concerning number of geeks who still wet themselves. Also, if I ever saw a 15-year-old who looked like this, I'd probably understand why 30-year-olds play as teenagers in TV shows. Now, given that this is a Rockstar Games production, you're going to get some form of transportation to get around not just Bulworth Academy, but the small town of Bulworth as well. In the early hours of the game, you gain access to the skateboard, which is very useful at aiding you in escaping the teachers after giving a fellow student a wedgie and throwing a stink bomb in the hallways. Then, sometime later, you get access to numerous bikes, each of which having differing stats and use cases. It's a very convenient upgrade from the skateboard, but it's definitely missing a motorized component to help you achieve maximum speed. Now, you can help alleviate this issue by heading to the carnival and earning enough tickets to win a moped, but I'll tell you right now, the only reason why you'd want to use this thing is for the pure novelty of it, because it's not that much faster than a bike, and the handling is, to put it bluntly, absolutely horrendous. So you might be thinking, well, there's gotta be something better than any of the aforementioned vehicles. Well, don't worry, because this game has you covered if you're willing to get your hands a little dirty. In the game, upon reaching Chapter 2, you'll be able to partake in both bike races and go-kart races. For the sake of this video, it's best to fixate on the latter series of races. There are a grand total of 8 go-kart races in the game, with 3 of them being street races, and the other 5 taking place in the traveling carnival. Now, as someone who is a bit of a Mario Kart connoisseur, I mistakenly went in with the mindset of these races being fairly straightforward. The first couple of races aren't too bad, but good lord, things get extremely demanding when you get into the later ones. You have to be pretty damn precise to stay ahead of the competition, and one wrong move will almost immediately spell disaster, as the rest of the go-kart racers speed past you like they're trying to avoid getting blue-shelled. Not to mention, the handling of these things can, at times, be a bit slippery, so to speak. So you gotta be planning your turns at least a few business days ahead of time if you want to make it to first place. However, the fruits of your labor will inevitably pay off, as completing every single one of the 8 go-kart races bestows you with your own personal go-kart that you can retrieve from the school's bike garage. You can then laugh maniacally as you look down upon your bike and moped, because, and I'll tell you this right now, there'll be no use for these guys ever again. The go-kart is easily the best vehicle in the game by a massive degree. This thing reaches comically high levels of speed, so much so that the nearby cars might as well be completely irrelevant, as you zoom past them while achieving speeds of what feels like Mach 10. To be fair though, the nearby pedestrians are probably conforming to the traffic laws, but that didn't stop these guys, now did it? And remember earlier when I said that the races open up in Chapter 2? Well, there's nothing stopping you from just completing all of the street races and then spending the rest of the game zooming past, or over, the students and civilians and getting away with it because the authorities are always just too slow to catch you. If this is how go-karts functioned in other games, then maybe my GTA Online character wouldn't be $500,000 in the hole. So take that, Gary. You can take my pride, but you can't take my go-kart. You can call me materialistic all you want, but I call it being practical. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got more important things to do with my time. Like placing bets at the freak show. Look, I doubled my profits. What the fuck did you do?
Shoot me, human.
I just did.
And lastly, we're taking a look at a game in a series that is full of incredible post-game unlockables, Grand Theft Auto 5. Do I really need to talk about the impact that Grand Theft Auto 5 had on the gaming world when it was released almost 11 years ago? Jesus Christ, time really flies. Even if you weren't an avid connoisseur of video games, you more than likely knew of Grand Theft Auto 5's existence. With a sprawling open world, an ambitious and cleverly written story, 3 different characters to play as, and one of the most successful and iconic multiplayer modes that still sees regular attendance to this very day, it's no wonder that Grand Theft Auto 5 was a success of gargantuan proportions, gathering near-perfect scores across the board from critics, and going on to sell roughly 190 million units, making it the second highest-selling video game of all time. With all of that money, it makes you wonder how Rockstar didn't bother to fix the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition. Now, one of my favorite aspects of GTA 5 is the fact that it actively acknowledges the numerous myths and urban legends that fans had speculated about since the days of Vice City. It technically wasn't the first to do so. I mean, you could count San Andreas as an early example with the jetpack and Area 69, or GTA 4 with the beating heart of the Statue of Happiness, but I think GTA 5 acknowledged the kooky and outlandish myths in the best way possible. You have aliens, a ghost lady in Mount Chiliad, a serial killer tied to the aforementioned ghost lady, zombies, technically, and murderous psychopaths. And no, I'm not referring to the serial killer, I'm talking about Trevor. But perhaps the biggest and most iconic myth of the Grand Theft Auto series is none other than the creature based on American folklore, and probably a redneck's wet dream. I'm talking about Bigfoot. I acknowledged Bigfoot in one of my first videos on the channel regarding gaming myths and urban legends. Go check it out if you want to, but I'll warn ya, the mic quality is worse than a trip to the bathroom after eating gas station sushi. Ever since the days of GTA San Andreas, Bigfoot has become practically synonymous with the GTA series, with many players pumping in hours of gameplay to find the mythical beast with little to no avail. Thankfully, GTA 5 would finally give players the opportunity to track and hunt down this iconic mythical creature. Firstly, you've got to earn that coveted 100% completion. Now, don't fear, this game released just 3 years after Red Dead Redemption, so the completion criteria shouldn't be too bad. My fucking god. After going through that series of hurdles, do whatever you want because the next step involves exercising a fair bit of patience. You have to wait for a fairly prolonged period of time before eventually seeing a green question mark appear on the map when playing as Franklin. Head on over to it and the mission begins with Franklin coming across a clearly perturbed hunter who claims to have seen a Sasquatch roaming the area. It's now your job to find this creature that the guy has allegedly seen, but something tells me that the cataracts in his eye may have had a bit of an influence here. Regardless, you humor the guy and go on the hunt, despite the fact that Franklin is not wearing anything even remotely close to hunting attire. I mean, those gym shorts might as well paint a bright yellow target on his back for all the hungry mountain lions roaming the area, but I digress. Head on over to the general area, and you'll eventually spot a tall, brown creature very akin to the one described by the old man, running at inhuman speeds and leading you down a trail with all sorts of danger. I told you the gym shorts were too bright, Franklin. Those mountain lions are gonna eat you alive because your lower body comfort was more important than your life, you stubborn asshole. You can keep on chasing Bigfoot all you want, but you're never going to get a clean shot on the guy because he clearly hasn't skipped leg day. Eventually, though, you'll have Bigfoot cornered and can finally land the killing shot on him. The creature then begs you to put another bullet in his head, but something seems a little bit off. Franklin pulls off his head with ease like he's part of Mortal Kombat's roster, and oh, what's this? Some lunatic decided it would be a good idea to roleplay as Bigfoot because apparently that's what people do in their spare time. To be fair though, Los Santos is based off of California, so it kinda makes sense. You can now choose to either spare or kill the guy, but I want this guy to wallow in his poor life choices and possibly consider an alternate hobby. And you know, speaking of Bigfoot, this mission ended on a rather humorous note, so I can only imagine that Red Dead Redemption did the same with its Bigfoot mission in Undead Nightmare.
Shoot me. I can't take it anymore.
Jesus Christ, man.